In today's video, I'm going to share a useful trick that you can use to retouch your portraits using frequency separation. What's up everyone? Welcome to today's video. My name is Miguel Quiles, and if it's your first time here, I want to take a quick moment to welcome you. If you're into learning new things in the world of photography, I invite you to subscribe to my channel as I release new videos here every single week. Speaking of videos, I want to thank the sponsor for today's video, Skillshare. If you're looking to dive deep into learning retouching and Photoshop in general, I found a ton of fantastic videos on Skillshare. They offer an online learning platform with more than 25,000 classes covering topics ranging from photography to business to design and much more. This week I've been watching a bunch of videos about retouching on their site and have already added a bunch of new tricks that you'll be seeing me use in some of my upcoming images. The service is less than $10 a month and it gives you access to their entire library of content. Even though there's a minimal investment up front, I worked out a great deal for you all. If you sign up using the link in the description for this video, the first 500 people to do so will get a 2-month free trial. After you're done watching this video, head on over and continue learning with Skillshare. Let's get into today's topic, which has been a highly requested one, and it's all about frequency separation. Now, if you're not familiar with what that is, it's a method that gets used and abused in Photoshop where you can separate the texture and color in your portraits to help you retouch a bit more precisely. It's a powerful way to get a high-end look out of your portraits, but it's also easy to go overboard and make your subjects look like cartoon characters. I'm going to show you today a little trick in my workflow that helps me better target only the areas that need to be addressed using this technique. Now, I won't be going into how I set up the frequency separation layers, but I'm going to add a link in the description for this video where you can download a custom-made Photoshop action that I made free of charge. I'd recommend pausing the video right now to go ahead and do that so you can follow along with your own image. We'll begin with this image of Julianna that I took a few weeks ago, and I'll start by running my frequency separation action. So what we're gonna do to kind of get this going, we're gonna hit this action, this little play button. If you don't see this here, you can go up to Window and just select Actions to be able to see this panel. And that Photoshop action that I told you to download, you could just hit play on that, and it's going to begin to apply all of the frequency separation layers. It's even going to give you a little bit of a dialog box to let you know how this is being set up. So you want to make sure that you select a radius value that blurs the skin, yet still preserves defined lines in your portrait. We'll hit continue, and that's just letting you know so that when you look at this image, it automatically has a radius value of 22, but chances are 22 is going to be way too much, it's too blurry. So we're just going to adjust this radius value until we've blurred the skin, but yet you can still see the edges of the eyebrows, the lips, things of that nature. So right at about an 8 radius, you'll be able to see that the edges of the lip are blurred, the eyes are blurred, skin is blurred, the edges of the eyebrows have some blur to them, but you know, it's not like you can't tell that you're looking at an eyebrow or you can't tell that you're looking at an eye. You definitely want to make sure that you could still kind of see the details in the photo. So for this image, it's an 8, but keep in mind, every photo is going to be different. If it's a full body shot, if it's you know, 3/4 length portrait, every time these values are going to be different. So don't just leave the default there. So we're going to hit OK. And it's automatically just going to make the rest of the changes. Then it's going to give you a little message that tells you that your layers are all set up. To retouch the portrait, you're going to use the clone stamp tool, and you're going to sample parts of the image that have good skin, and you're going to paint over the areas that you want to fix. You're doing that on layer 2 copy. Okay, so that's basically just the run through. We'll get rid of this little menu here. And then where we now have this frequency separation group, you're going to notice that there's a bunch of different layers. Realistically, the only 2 layers that I use are 2 copy, 2, and help/sharpness layer. Now, this layer is the one that you might be a little bit unfamiliar with if you've ever used frequency separation. And this layer is like the key to making frequency separation work. This is like my secret weapon to making sure that I don't go too far with frequency separation and only target those areas that I need to target. Now, before I explain how this works, I want to show you the image, same one, because I'm sure you might be curious what the before and after looks like when I've retouched a portrait. People always wonder what the raw file looks like versus the retouch. So here is the raw file. This is basically just taken in from Capture One and brought over into Photoshop. And then this is with the frequency separation layer turned on. And if I zoom into the image, you're not going to see really anything when you see it from far away. But if we zoom in to about 33%, you're going to notice here's the before and after on this part of the face. And then under the eyes, you notice the whites of the eyes have been adjusted. The skin underneath the eye has been adjusted. Same thing here. Very small corrections where I see a lot of people kind of fall into the trap of frequency separation is that they apply like crazy drastic adjustments to the entire face. And the reality is, like in this case, it doesn't need it. Julianna has great skin. So you only want to target the problem areas, and that's not the whole face. Like it's usually just different parts of the image. Same thing here, turning it off and on. Those are the changes that were made to the forehead. Got rid of some of the hairs, stray hairs. Got rid of a few little blemishes, nothing too crazy. Then, if we turn on dodge and burn, this is the dodge and burn layer. This is something where this can be tweaked to taste. So, this is something where if I use dodge and burn and I went a little bit too far, I could just take the whole group and I could lower or raise the opacity to be able to apply more or less of those adjustments. And then usually once I've done frequency separation and dodge and burn, the last thing I'm doing is doing my color adjustments. So you can see this is how I decided to color grade this particular image. So again, the before and the after. And that includes frequency separation, dodge and burn, color adjustments. This video is specifically going to look at frequency separation, but in the future, if you guys want to see videos on how I use dodge and burn and how I do color grading, let me know in the comment section below and maybe I'll do a series on that. But let's go back to the raw file. We've basically just run this Photoshop action, which has now set up our frequency separation layers. And in order to use it, we're going to go to this to copy layer. We're going to go to our clone stamp tool and we're going to zoom in and we're going to just look at what we're seeing with the skin. Now, what's awesome with this help/sharpness layer, if I turn it off and on, you should hopefully notice that the skin gets quite a bit sharper when you turn this off and on. And all that that's really doing is when it sharpens the image, you can actually see more of the texture in your portrait. Now, later on, we could actually take that effect and we can brush it onto different parts of the image. And I'm gonna show you how I do that. But right now, it's really just helping us to be able to see inconsistencies in the skin. So I can see straight away a lot more detail. I can see the areas that I need to fix. And let's get started with fixing them. So I'm gonna take my clone stamp tool. Right now, the hardness is set to 0. If you have the hardness set to 0, those areas that you try to repair the skin, it's gonna make kind of a blurrier type of adjustment. So you wanna make sure that you're only using that 0% hardness on parts of the area or parts of the image that are out of focus, that are a little bit blurry. Because it's gonna apply a blurrier texture to the skin. If I raise the hardness, and I'll actually show you this both ways so you can get an example. You could see on the chin here that because I shot this at f1.8, that it's a little bit out of focus, right? So if I hold down Alt to sample a part of the skin here and I start to brush, you're gonna notice that, let's turn this off, here's the before and the after. So you'll notice that the skin that was applied was kind of blurry, right? However, if let's make sure, okay, perfect. So if I go to this 2 copy layer, and let's say I take the hardness and I bring it up to 100, here's what happens. Now 100% hardness is gonna carry over a lot of texture. And even though you're using that blurry part of the area, sometimes it applies the texture a little bit differently. So in this case, it's not as bad, but you will notice if you keep it at 0% hardness and you're over a part of the skin that's a little more textured, like let's say like underneath the eye here, this has quite a bit more texture. So if I'm using the tool at the max hardness, it's gonna copy and paste skin that looks sharp and that looks like it's in focus. However, I'm gonna wanna play with this hardness level depending on the skin, and that's kind of the long and short of that. So we're gonna keep kind of working on this. And if I see any of these areas where I hold down Alt and then I brush over the skin, and if I see any areas that aren't looking quite right, that's when I'm going to go to the hardness level of the tool and I'm going to make those adjustments. So very easily, very quickly, you can go through an image and basically just copy parts of the image where you have skin that looks good. And because that help layer is showing you more detail in the skin, you'll know where to apply those adjustments. You're not just randomly going to brush over every part of the skin. You're really just going to target those specific areas. The other thing is that you want to make sure that your sample is coming from a similar texture of skin. So you don't want to, let's say if you're retouching the forehead, you don't want to grab the texture of the leg or something random. You want to make sure that the texture is somewhere near wherever it is that you're trying to adjust. So where frequency separation works really well is in the eyes, when you're trying to get rid of the red parts of the eye. It seems like frequency separation for me has just always worked really well for that. I don't always use this technique for skin, but certain situations it actually works really well. And of course, the more time that you spend on the image, you could actually make an image look pretty perfect if you wanted to. So going through different parts of the image here, and again, I'm not going to retouch the whole photo, but I do kind of want to get something that looks semi good for you guys. All right, so here I'm starting to see a little bit of that hardness on the clone stamp tool, because this part of the face is defocused. And that's because of the f1.8 aperture. So there we go. All right, we'll go over here. Again, Alt copy. And so all of this is all good and fun, but this next step that I'm going to show you is like, it's life, man. It's it really just takes your portraits to another level if you apply it correctly. I'll show you here in a sec. Super excited about this. All right, so again, just going over different parts of the face here, over the forehead, and this little help layer, I'm going to turn it off and on again so you can see that because everything is so sharp, I could actually see right away what needs to be adjusted. You're noticing I'm only targeting those specific parts of the face, you know, like this hair here. Not going too crazy. I think where I see a lot of people kind of go nuts with frequency separation, they'll just brush over like the whole face all in one pass, and then, you know, they no longer look human. They look like caricatures. And you know, if that's like a creative thing that you're going for, that's cool. But just keep in mind that since everybody is tending to do that with the tool, everybody's images start to look the same. You know, it starts to get to the point to where that cartoon look becomes very common. And so it makes it really hard for your images to kind of be set apart from the competition when everybody's doing that same thing. But yet, when your images are really clear, when the retouching is really good, that in and of itself makes your images kind of stand apart. And oftentimes that's what you need to separate yourself from the competition. So that's been my kind of key to success, is having portraits that look a little bit different than what you know, the common theme and the common look is. I'm not saying it's better, you know, it's just different. And because it's different, people tend to like it. So just my 2 cents. All right. So you can see really quickly, if I wasn't actually trying to like talk and explain this process, I probably could do this even faster. But you know, I do kind of want to explain this so you guys have a jumping off point here. All right, so looking at the photo, actually there's some more work here. I didn't even do anything here, I don't think. So let's go here. Super simple. Again, Alt click, brush over these areas. And of course, when you're first starting out using this technique, I wouldn't advise even going as fast as I'm going right now, because you really need to just learn how to fine tune your eyes to be able to see some of this stuff. I've been doing this for a while, so like, some of you might look at the portrait and you're like, oh, the raw file looked perfectly fine. Why are you even doing anything to that? Well, I've been doing this for a while and my eye sees different things. And so I want to make images that look good for me, you know, and usually the clients are pretty happy with them as well. So that's kind of the goal. All right, so I think we're looking pretty good. So you guys kind of get an idea. This is how you would use frequency separation to make adjustments to clean different parts of the skin, clean up stray hairs, so on and so forth. All right, zoom out and we'll turn off that sharpness layer. And this is before and this is after. So you don't really notice a huge difference, right? Frequency separation, when you turn the layers off and on, you shouldn't see like 100% difference in your portrait. If you did, you maybe did too much or you went a little bit too far. You should really only see just very slight differences. So like, for example, this little area here that I keep going over, this is an area that I won't address with frequency separation. What I'll oftentimes do is afterwards, I'll create a blank layer and then I'll use the skin healing brush and I'll go over some of these other areas that frequency separation is not really working too well with. So you're going to use multiple techniques, multiple methods to be able to retouch the skin to absolute perfection, right? All right, so I feel like we're at a pretty good point here with the retouch. Granted, there's more that I can do, but I've already actually retouched this image. I don't want to do it a second time. So that's good enough for now. So we know how to use the tool, but here's what's really cool. So this help and sharpness layer, obviously it's making everything really sharp and the hair looks kind of weird with this layer applied. So what you could do is if you select this white box here, on a PC, if you hold down Control-I, you notice that it'll switch from white to black. And now if I turn this layer off and on, it's not doing anything because it's being hidden by this black layer. I could choose to expose this sharp layer at whatever degree it is that I choose to apply it. So I can select the brush tool, and by changing the flow, we could just put it at 100% for now just to show this. And if it's a black mask, you want to change your color that you're brushing with to white. So whatever the opposite is, that's going to reveal what's underneath that black mask, which happens to be a sharp layer. So we're gonna apply this little layer here, and I'm gonna reduce the size of the brush. There we go. And I'm just gonna brush here. And we'll come over to the other eye. We'll brush here. Now this is at 100%, so meaning 100% flow. So it's actually showing like the maximum sharpness that was in that layer. And if I turn this off and on, the eyes end up looking really, really awesome in this case. Now, what you wanna make sure is that when you apply it at 100%, sometimes you're looking at it really close up and you start to just get mesmerized. You're like, wow, that looks so cool. It just added so much sharpness to the eye. It really brings out the details. But if you zoom out on the photograph, sometimes, and not so much in this case, but sometimes when you do that, it actually will make the eyes look like lizard eyes or like reptilian people eyes. So you don't always want to go super far with this help and sharpness layer. So now that we've done that, we can look at it and we can see that even at 100%, it actually looks pretty good. So you saw the skin actually looked really good when we were kind of adding this sharpness layer to the image, but at 100%, it's probably a little bit too much. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bring the flow down to about maybe, let's see, 20%. So we reduce the flow to 20%. And I don't know if that's gonna be the right value, but we're just gonna check and see. We're gonna brush 20% of this sharpness layer. And I'm gonna zoom into it here. We'll turn this layer off and on. And you probably can't tell the difference, and that's actually a good thing in this case, because I do wanna bring out some of the detail. I do wanna sharpen the skin a little bit, but I don't wanna go like super crazy overboard with this. So that is basically how you can use that layer to maximum effect. You could go over different parts of the image, and by just changing the flow or the opacity of your brush, you could actually just paint this level of sharpness on different parts of your image. So I tend to have a little bit of the higher levels of sharpness on the lips, on the eyes. But again, every image is different. And what's cool about this is that you could adjust the intensity of this effect just by changing the flow or the opacity of your brush. So again, showing you the kind of like the completely done, completely finished retouch portrait. I use frequency separation in the way that I just showed you just now to basically just correct the skin. Dodge and burn, to be very honest with you, makes another really big percentage of difference in your portraits. So perhaps we'll do that in another video. So let me know, what questions do you have about frequency separation? Do you think that little trick is cool? If you think it is, definitely let me know in the comment section. Download the free action, save yourself some time. You can set these things up on your own. And in case you were wondering, that layer is basically just clipped to the high layer. So if you have your own frequency separation layers already set up, all you have to do is you'll create a contrast layer, which you could just click brightness and contrast. You're gonna take your contrast up to 50. And this is what it looks like before you've actually done what you need to do. And then once you've set this contrast to 100 or to 50, you're gonna hold down Alt and you're gonna clip it to that copy layer or to the high layer. Now in this case, I already have one there, so it looks kind of crazy, but if you're doing this on your own, that's essentially what I've done here, is to take contrast, bring it up to 50, clip it to the high layer, and you're good to go. Once you're done using the layer to identify the problem parts, invert the mask, brush that level of sharpness over the image as you so desire. So let me know in the comment section any questions that you have. Hopefully I'll be making some more retouching videos for you in the near future. Again, if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the channel. I'm marching forward towards 50,000 subscribers, and maybe by the time this video gets posted up, maybe I'll be there, I don't know. But once we get there, we're gonna be marching forward towards 75,000. So Thank you guys so much for the support. I really hope that all of these tutorials, I can't even speak after a while. I hope all of these tutorials are helping you to bring your portraiture to a new level. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.